Hi, this is Priyanka and I welcome you all to Srijan Wednesday webinars. For those who are attending for the first time, this is a community initiative by Srijan Technologies. As a part of this initiative, we will be hosting webinars every alternate Wednesday. We will have speakers from different domains who will talk about subjects like front-end technologies, UI/UX, mobile apps, media, entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and many more. In today's webinar, our speaker will talk about how everyone can be an inventor and how to break the myths about innovation in the first 45 minutes. The last 15 minutes will be for a Q&A round. You can ask your questions either by raising your hand and pressing the raise hand button on your control panel and typing in your question in the chat box below. I would now like to introduce our speaker for today's webinar. We have with us Mishkin Ingevele. Mishkin is the co-founder of Biosense, an internationally recognized medtech company developing disruptive diagnostic devices. He is also one of the inventors of the Copenhagen Wheel, an award-winning electric bike at MIT. His work has featured at TED, New York Times, BBC, TechCrunch, and Wired. He is currently working on a not-so-secret project that will make everyone an inventor. So without wasting any more time, I think we should get started. Mishkin, over to you.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Wonderful to be here and looking forward to, first of all, the presentation, but mostly, I think, a healthy debate at the end of this particular session. So today I want to really talk about a topic close to my heart, which is how do you get everybody to be creative? How do we really get everybody to be an inventor or innovator? This is something which is close to me because firsthand I have seen almost a phobia which many people have against seeing themselves as innovative. This is something which I believe many of us suffer from. It's almost an insecurity which doesn't go away ever. So you know, that said, let me do a little quick test with this particular audience. I'd request you to answer a couple of questions which I've set out before we even discuss anything in detail. So I'll just request Priyanka to just put on the poll, and you'll get the three questions, a couple of questions for you to look at. So I'll just give a couple of minutes for people to go through and start answering these. I'd be very curious to find out the responses from this audience. So very interesting already. We have people who have clearly got great ideas in their minds. Most of the audience, 60% of the audience has had multiple ideas, a reasonable number of ideas. The option number 3 came out as the top option. Very interesting indeed. So 2 to 5 potentially game-changing idea everybody's had. Let's look at what you've done with those. So let's give it a minute more. Okay, so I think very interesting results. All right, very interesting again. Uh, I think I'm getting to know this audience already. So more than 60%, 64% of you have implemented at least one of your potentially game-changing ideas. So indeed, I think this is very encouraging already. Yeah, great. So I think this is already proving to be an interesting start. So, this is not typical, I believe, but therefore, in a way, this audience already has self-selected itself as people who have demonstrated a gumption already in following through with at least one of the ideas which they had in their heads. Great. So let's just go ahead. I'll keep asking you a few questions in between, just to get a sense of how this audience feels about things. But let's anyway jump into it. I'll give you a brief background of what I've been doing. So I've been involved with multiple hardware projects, starting with electric bikes, as Priyanka was mentioning, and thereafter with multiple medical devices, which my team at Biosense had been building since 2008. Now, I'll give you a few examples, or one specific example which I can use to illustrate some of the points in this session. So the product is something called UCheck. This is something which uses an Android platform to do image processing for multiple blood and urine related diagnostics. This is how it looks like. It is a conventional machine which you would see in any pathology lab, which would process urine reagent sticks via image processing method. This is something which every path lab, I believe, in India would possess. But unfortunately, many smaller stations, many smaller outreach center, and definitely many government-run facilities would not have adequate facilities. This is the particular problem we saw. That how do we make technology more affordable, cheaper, accessible in the medical diagnostics area? The product which Biosense ended up making, has had its genesis on a very simple idea that today's phones have cameras which can do more than just take pictures of your friends and family. They can be used as image processing sensors and image processing platforms for a multitude of applications. So the video, if you can see a very brief 30-second video, there is how, in a very simple way, urine test is currently being done across now multiple pathology labs in India, thanks to UCheck, a product which my team had conceptualized, designed, and then built. Of course, and as is usual in these cases, iterated along the way multiple times, changed the design, even the core working principle, and so forth. I just bring this up to illustrate the rest of my talk. Maybe a few principles about invention, about innovation, both of these, and maybe we can have a discussion around some of the audience's projects as well. UCheck, again, like I said, uses an Android platform to do image processing of urine or blood test strips. Here you can see, for example, the screen right now shows glucose readings. So the concentration of glucose in urine stream is showing up there, and you can then therefore do a lot of things with data once you have it. So you can trend it, and I'm sure this audience is very familiar with data and big data especially, and this is increasingly a trend in healthcare. So you have in this case trending, you have even GPS timestamp data which could which right now some of our customers, Biosense's customers, have been using for really deploying screening centers, for deploying mobile diagnostic vans in multiple parts of the country, and having all that information readily accessible on the web, in the cloud, from any location. So a program manager sitting in Bombay can take real-time decisions based on data rather than just blindly. These are some of the interesting things which are possible from one core idea that your mobile camera could do image processing of urine and blood test strips. So yeah, so like I said, this is pretty much an example. I'll use this as an example as I go along. Let me come to my number one point. Therefore, the myth, a few myths. We've been talking of invention. We've been talking of innovation. Before we even start off, in our own heads, these words convey something very, very specific. These words convey typically, I mean, at least in my head, it does convey a solo inventor. It conveys almost a mythological figure, somebody who is superhuman, somebody who almost has been bestowed with powers and of creativity, of thinking out of the box, of thinking something so extraordinary that the rest of us mere mortals can only aspire to to follow. But I believe, I mean, this is my thinking over the last few years as I've been building products. I've sort of think that this is one of the biggest myths of invention, that there is this solo inventor who is somehow bigger or better or in general smarter than all of us. This, I believe, has been more or less propagated consistently through media, through our own informal conversations and so forth, but primarily through the whole lexicon which exists around invention, around innovation even. So let me give a few examples maybe that come to mind. Here's a controversial one. Steve Jobs, right? This is somebody who has been deified as he's the face of innovation, and we see the language used in media is all about the hero. This is the hero of the tale. If you go back in history, and there are of course multiple examples, I won't dwell too much on any specific examples, or and rather use some of my own examples from Biosense and other places, so that at least I can speak very specifically about what it is that I have inferred from my limited experience. Another very interesting example, which is very rampant in our all over people's blogs, news, and in our own heads, Thomas Edison. This is the poster child of innovation for many decades now. Well, no, this is again, if you read up a little bit more on the history of Edison and what he did and so forth. The interesting thing that does come out is that he had 15 very talented physicists, chemists, and other experts from different fields, collectively known as, in some books it's termed as muckers. So these muckers essentially worked full-time in an attic with Edison, and it was a team. Basically, it was pretty much a team effort, inventing the series of technologies and products which Edison's company eventually came out with. I gave this example not so much to make any claims or refute any claims about Edison, but rather to highlight that in many cases Edison himself, for example, very consciously showed himself as the face of this enterprise, and with very good reason, that this is the story of the hero. The mythology, the myth of the hero is something which was easy to communicate and which the media could also really grab onto in a very, very straightforward manner. This is what I think, and again, my intention would not be so much to go very specific into any of these examples. Feel free to read up different accounts. There are some wonderful books and commentaries on those books available, widely available. Right. So I'll come back to my own example. I mentioned UCheck had its genesis in a very simple idea that mobile phone, today's mobile phone has a powerful enough camera and a powerful enough processor to be able to do many more things than it was originally designed for. So starting with this original idea of using mobile phones imaging capabilities for urine and blood test strip imaging, I mean, the original even idea itself, I could say, was bounced around in these 4 people, and I'll maybe show you the very different backgrounds which these guys have. This is me on the left. I'm an engineer and a management guy. Then there's Abhishek and Yogesh in the middle, 2 doctors who are co-founders of Biosense. So one is a doctor and an engineer, the other is a doctor and a marketing guy. And the one on the extreme right is Aman Midha. He's the lead designer, and he's also a mechanical engineer. You'll see that multiple people with multiple, they bring different things, different perspectives, and more importantly, different convictions about what is right, what will work, what will not work. And this is, I think, this dialogue which happens most often. It happens informally, it happens over coffee, it happens when you least expect it. This dialogue is something that actually it creates, not even converts an idea into a product, but actually even creates the original idea itself. So my contention would be that even the concept of one person with a brainwave which solves everything, right? An idea, a big idea, is something which is false. This concept of a hero who has an idea which saves the world, in my opinion, is not realistic. What I've seen observed most often is that a team much like this one would typically refine the original idea into more and more kind of in a very linear fashion. It is not a discontinuous process. It's a very linear, continuous, gradual process where something of value gets slowly created. Initially in the minds, and then in physical form as a prototype, as a product eventually. So this is one of my contentions. The myth of the solo inventor needs to be debunked completely before we can even think about democratizing invention. This is often second point which I have around this is, and some of you may have already heard it, is that Eureka is a word which is often a phrase which is often associated with innovation, Archimedes and so forth. The Eureka, hey, I found something. This is amazing. My science project worked, or my hunch paid off. In reality, of course, many of these actual sort of big breakthrough movements never come because of Eureka. They come because of 2 words. That's funny. And so effectively, this is highlighting how accidental discovery, how accidents actually play a part in anything novel which comes out with inventors. Again, there are multiple examples. In our own case, let me maybe I can show you some specific examples around UCheck, where the current version of UCheck, which is super accurate, which is super kind of affordable and portable, all of it is possible only because of a particular accidental kind of feature which is around how to make sure that no outside ambient light interferes. And this only happened because of a choice of material which we had used to make the very translucent kind of light chamber which the current technology uses. And in a sense, it wasn't a planned process. It was a very iterative process where real-time data from testing, from just throwing it in the field, from essentially trying it out, was responsible for that particular hunch. It wasn't a great idea by itself. It was an idea which was thrust upon us by the data, basically. That's what I'm saying. And therefore, it was not a Eureka movement. It was a, hey, that's funny. It's not working, but it's working when I make this random kind of change. So in general, I'll come back to this point later in the fail fast thing, which I think all innovators would, as far as I know, swear by. But let me come back to again how to get started with this innovation business. typically, again, coming back to what's stopping us, what I feel is really happening is in the common culture, you find words like disruptive, path breaking, pioneering. These are the words which are used to describe inventors, innovators, which we often associate with the process of invention. Disruptive, path breaking, pioneering. Think about that for a little bit. I mean, if I ask myself, am I disruptive, path breaking, pioneering? I'd say no, not at all. None of us in our own mind, unless we are really egomaniac, would think of ourselves as disruptive, path breaking, or pioneering. Everyone, I think, in our own humble way, we think we are going about our daily business. We get up, we go to work, and you muck around, basically, right? You do what you can. So therefore, this is a big dissonance that nobody in this world, as far as no humble person in this world would think of himself or herself as disruptive, path-breaking, or pioneering, and therefore they would not take themselves seriously as inventors. In many cases, a person who might have a genuinely good chance of changing the world, so to speak, would never actually give it a shot, would never try it out, would never take the first step, because the terminology is something which they cannot associate themselves with. But in reality, we will paint this picture a little deeper, but over the course of this session. But I want to instead give you 3 slightly more boring sounding words, which I believe are more synonymous in reality with invention. It's incremental, it's simultaneous, and it's accidental. So accidental, we have already gone over a little bit over the last slide. So you know that in many cases it is not the visionary work of a solo inventor, but an accidental breakthrough which happens because you tried hard enough, long enough. Simultaneous is something which is interesting as well. It plays a little bit into the team mantra which I had illustrated earlier, but sometimes not. In many cases, you'll see, again, I'd really recommend you to start off with Wikipedia and then go to more authoritative sources, accounts, biographies, different sources, where you'll find that many of the inventions which, in hindsight today, if you look back, have changed, have really changed the past and to shape our world today, have been simultaneous. So take anything, take the discovery of the transistor. Going back, you can take very fundamental things like differential calculus. I mean, if you look at from abstract concept to science to different technologies to different products, you'll find that there are certain times in history when it almost seems as if an idea whose time has come. Then that is, it will emerge, and it will emerge at multiple places at once. You will find that when the right confluence of factors exists. So I mean, let's take the case of today's, the most often quoted mobile phone as a change agent kind of example. The mobile phone emerged at a time when the internet had already, played some significant role in the world. You've had increasingly, electronics was commoditized and cheaper. You had a time when education levels across the board in the developing world were at a level where a lot of the benefits from the internet, from even other social and cultural advances in societies, in the social security, you can look at multiple factors why the whole series of innovations around mobile phones could emerge almost simultaneously through multiple inventors, through multiple teams working often enough without knowledge of one another. Therefore, that's another world. We do not need to be pioneering or path breaking in that sense. We are often part of a collective whole which in a sense rides the wave of a series of developments which happened completely independent of us in the past, and the whole, what academicians call as standing on the shoulder of giants, using the work of other people around us, of the great mind of the past, is and then sort of making the best of what we can using those ingredients today is something which most of us would anyway do in our daily lives, but we somehow don't. I mean, it is definitely in our heads not path-breaking, pioneering, or disruptive. It is simultaneous and incremental in that sense. So that's the context which I'm viewing again this whole the terminology, and I think that this is a big. It may sound a little trivial, but in my opinion, it's a big deal because it deters really really potentially great ideas from shaping tomorrow. It deters a lot of us from actually taking ourselves very seriously and making committed effort to put those ideas out there to really get evangelize them, to get supporters, to get people to collaborate with us and so forth, to get the ball rolling. So that's about that. Coming back to UCheck, this is a box I mentioned, the translucent material which enables the light from the camera's flash itself and using the image processing capabilities of phone to actually do it. So this particular box, one of the first versions was on an iPhone, by the way, but one of the first versions was just using polypropylene, using a very, very simple plastic film essentially. And this was a little bit accidental, little bit because of a certain series of events. So again, just to quickly say that it wasn't a designed process, a typical sort of linear process where one thing in the lab everything worked out, and from day one you had a product which just revolutionized everything. So that's number one myth, solo inventor, and not so much the the myth of the solo inventor. I think definitely needs to be debunked. Number two myth, and this is one of my favorites. It's the expert myth. Many young people I know, not even young people, especially many experienced people I would say I know, would also suffer from this myth. So I am not an expert in whatever X, Y, Z. Therefore, how can I be of use there? It is again, I think again a little bit our own humility, our own phobia of being of being useless, essentially, of not being useful, or even worse, of appearing to be a fool, which is in fact hindering somebody who wants to actually who can be an expert. So these thoughts, the sort of stream of thoughts in our own minds prevents us. I'm just summing them up as the expert myth. Basically, we don't think of ourselves as worthy of inventing anything. We think that, hey, only the experts can invent stuff. And again, this may be a gross generalization, but I do feel that some variant of this always is going on in our own heads, that, hey, I'm not an expert in chemistry. How can I come up with XYZ technology, which is mostly about chemistry? Hey, I'm not an expert in mobile technology. How can I create a system that will radically change some XYZ, PQR? So the expert myth actually originates again with our whole image of inventors as these lab coat wearing geeks, unapproachable geeks, which again have above normal IQ, who somehow or other have been bestowed through divine through some mysterious process with superhuman gifts of creativity, invention, and essentially creating stuff out of nothing. Again, this is part of that whole language, and again let me look at a few examples which may help to debunk that. Right? Let's come back to our very simple box example with UCheck. Right? The Biosense team, where Aman, Abhishek, Yogesh, they had all been sort of trying this out, and what they found through trial and error essentially is that the accuracy increased if this material of this property was used and the box was shaped at this dimension and so forth. So none of them were experts in I'm pretty sure, at least as far as I can know, none of my team members are experts in polypropylene or any material science. None of them are chemists. None of them have studied physics to understand how photonics works, how various domain-specific things work. But merely through failing fast, they could achieve an outcome which was essentially what what the customer wanted, what the user wanted to get accurate, reliable results. So this is again something which many startup people know, and it is still, even if they know it, it's very difficult to internalize this principle that experts don't matter, failing fast really matters. And in this case, having the courage to show an idea to enough people, to release it in the field, to get the data to, in the worst case, prove it wrong, right? In that case, the idea dies. This courage is something which is sometimes even knowing this, it's difficult to really implement. So fail fast. Whatever is in your head, whatever is the idea in your scribbled on a piece of paper secretly, nobody knows about it. Let's design experiments which can enable that particular idea to fail, and let's do those failure experiments as fast as possible. The faster they are, the cheaper your whole process is going to be. The more affordable it's going to be, the less risk you're going to incur going forward based on that idea. So that's something which is again extremely well understood these days, but still it's something which we somehow never actually end up internalizing completely. Right? That's around failure. The second thing, again related to the expert myth, is around innovation on the edges. So again, if some of you who have been following the academic literature in this area, you might have heard of terms like boundary spanners. So people who wear two hats. One hat is sort of expertise, or let's say some education in one field or some experience in one field, say chemistry, and another hat could be, say, a completely different field altogether, say cooking, right? So any of these kind of boundary spanners, or people who live on the edge between two domains, are actually pretty good contenders for being innovators. They often connect disparate ideas from two different fields, and broker this information flow between two completely different ways of thinking. And this is again completely obvious to us, and yet often we still suffer from the expert myth. Hey, I'm not an expert in so and so. So again, the whole 2 or 3 points around the expert myth are about not really trying enough, not really failing enough, not really respecting the boundary spanner enough, not even respecting ourselves if we are the boundary spanner enough, not understanding that the truly creative ideas come not from going deeper and deeper into a sort of narrower and narrower field, but by throwing it open wider and wider to other fields of inquiry, through different kinds of eyes, through different kinds of ways of thinking. So this is again, I recommend those of you who have interest. A lot of literature on this subject exists, both in the formal academic setting as well as in the more informal sort of anecdotal cases in multiple company formation, multiple innovative companies which have formed on the edges between disciplines. One specific one I'd just like to highlight, just to illustrate a point, is the story of Dick Drew. For those of you who don't know, this is in the 1920s, I believe. This was one of the people who used to work for 3M. Again, most of you, I'm assuming, will know what 3M does, but perhaps some of you may not know what 3M used to do in 1920s when it was quite young. So in that time, 3M only made sandpaper. Sandpaper for primarily it was used by the auto industry to scrape car, the metal body of a car in order to paint, for the paint to stick better. Now Dick Drew was, I guess, our story would necessitate him being an innovator. The story is pretty interesting. For those of you who don't know about it, Dick Drew noticed that the two-tone cars were very popular back in the day, and the current the method used to mask the car was very primitive. It was leading to sort of the paint job often having to be redone again because of errors. So he came up with an idea for masking tape. Today, of course, everybody knows masking tape, but at the time, it was a completely novel idea, and he tried to convince people within 3M, and especially the president McKnight, that 3M, who made sandpaper, could also easily make masking tape because a lot of the technologies were similar. So they could make masking tape much better than anybody else. Of course, predictably, in our story, as you can imagine, the president of 3M, McKnight, he told Dick Drew that, hey, we are a sandpaper company. This doesn't seem like our line of business. Let's scrap it. I don't think this is a good idea. So Dick Drew, of course, therefore his whole idea was rejected, thwarted, and so forth. He said, fine, we'll thwart it, but in essentially without the knowledge of his boss McKnight, Dick actually started working on it on his own, and he had a passion, a belief that this is something which would really make really a good market for 3M, and so he developed the whole technology essentially in secret. He had the power to sign only $100 checks at a time. So the whole project was developed using $99 checks at a time, multiple hundreds of $99 checks, basically, which he had the authority to sanction, and which he did so without anybody knowing where the money was going. And in a way, through his team's effort, the whole masking tape, one of 3M's biggest selling products, came about. You'll find similar stories for Post-it and other products thereafter in 3M, but this I highlighted because of two things. One is Dick Drew's own personal initiative and his team's willingness to work together on this in the seemingly very bad odds. Secondly, now once the customers had actually started accepting this product and liked it, interestingly, his boss McKnight, his response also has to be commended. Rather than let ego get in the way of this whole thing, he realized that Dick was right, and this was working, and he very quickly changed his stance, gave much greater amount of resources to Dick, and essentially elevated his whole project into 3M's major product line. And sandpaper thereafter was confined as a very secondary kind of product. The rest is history, and of course the 3M other products you will have, especially Post-it and others, have become very educational case studies on how to innovate. But in general, I think in the context of a company, and many of you, I'm assuming, would not be solo innovators, I hope, but working in the context of a team or a larger organization, is healthy disobedience, where to a large extent the fail fast mantra is something which Dick took very seriously. He very in a very lean way generated data to either disprove or prove his idea, and did so with the minimum of fuss. Similarly, the boss, so to speak, the president of the company himself understood what really mattered was the performance, the outcome, and that's how this whole healthy disobedience, I find this quite hilarious, actually, the word healthy disobedience. This is something which probably illustrates more than anything else how typically the fail fast plus the expert myth plus a lot of the concepts which run around in my head around innovation play out. So interesting story. Do look it up again. Quite a few interesting articles on this online. Right. That said, right, two myths. We've covered two myths, and we have gone over a few of the sort of examples, nuances, and so forth. But the big question, big three things for me, I hope you are trying to find out the answers to is how, right? How do you actually take the first step and become an inventor? Let's see, if we can throw some light on that. And I have a very simple answer to this. Yeah. So the three words which answer that is basically Google, right? I'm afraid this is going to be a very anticlimactic anticlimactic section of our talk. There is no secret way where everybody suddenly starts inventing. I feel that if you have an idea and if you want to pursue it, now better than any other time in human history, you have the resources to do so. And if you have access to a browser, which presumably you do if you're on this session, then you're actually pretty much along your way. I have a few maybe examples I can show of the changing world which is enabling anybody to be an inventor. Um, let's take the example of Kickstarter. Of course, I'm assuming all of you will know Kickstarter. For those of you who have been living under a rock, then Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform, and there are multiple clones of Kickstarter, multiple other crowdfunding platforms which now exist. But the concept is very simple. That person with an idea and with the gumption and the skill set and some resources initially, who has managed to develop the first step of that idea. It could be a prototype, it could be a music or art piece, it could be a film, but especially products are interesting to me because a platform like this has enabled multiple small teams of innovators to get their products to market, to get their ideas to market. And they have done so using merely a communication platform, using a very straightforward communication direct to the potential users of this product on platforms like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and various other crowdfunding platforms. This is something which is has never happened to my knowledge in the history of humanity, where one particular team of innovators could reach out to so many and essentially do two things at once. One is get pre-orders for their particular innovation, get validation from customers that this is going to work, and B, of course, is get the initial capital to do whatever needs to be done to get it to the users, production or logistics, whatever is needed to get design, production, and whatever else is needed to get the product to the user. This is something which various variants have come out. One interesting concept which I have also found is the concept of a collaborative platform for development. I kept mentioning team, and debunking the myth of the solo innovator. That said, therefore, the next question would come to me is that if I don't want to be a solo innovator, how do I find a team who can? Sometimes it happens accidentally. So in the case of Biosense, if you saw the 4 co-founders, we met accidentally through common friend, and have sort of been staying. We were staying in a similar same kind of locality in Mumbai and Thane and so forth. So accidentally the team could emerge, but in many cases that may not happen. So what is a very systematic way to collaborate? And apart from various matchmaking portals which exist for putting teams together, and again there are many. If you use Google, I'm sure there will be multiple answers. Personally, I find Quirky also quite fascinating. The way that so Quirky is a platform for collaborative idea generation and design development for consumer products. That you can use. The notion of a team can become as wide as you want to. If you in today's web world. In Quirky, hundreds of people could, in some way or another, influence a particular product idea before it actually is ever, even prototyped or made. So right from the initial concept to the design, it's all crowdsourced. So very interesting kind of developments all around you over the last, especially I believe, decade, where things have changed in a very big way. That said, then what should we do again? Let's come back to that. How Google, you have various tools, but closer to home, what is it that we can actually do? One is, of course, do your homework, figure out every particular way to collaborate. As long as we don't suffer, okay, let me just zoom out a little bit. As long as we don't suffer from these myths, that we make sure we really understand what has really worked in history. No solo innovator, it's all about the team, it's all about failing fast, it's all about not suffering from the expert myth, it's all about really understanding that this is really not, the not is more important than what it is, I believe. In most of, at least in my head, not is more important, what innovation is not is more important than what it is. Because if we start actually having an intention, if we have an intention to pursue any of our projects, I believe right now Google has enough answers to how. So that's pretty much, and I think rather than spend more time on examples, I'd love to have a more back and forth over these kind of issues amongst the participants. Okay, so closer to home, let me also highlight a couple of initiatives which I am closely related to, which I'm working on right now. So I'm after Biosense. So Biosense is currently headed by Abhishek Sen, one of the co-founders I met. I'm working on an interesting initiative to democratize invention in India. In India, more than any other place, I found silos to exist among different disciplines. I found people refusing to talk to each other for various reasons when it comes to their ideas, when it comes to even working on ideas. And I found effectively the myths of innovation to be nowhere are they stronger than they are in the minds of Indians. So I'm really keen to breaking those. So one of the things I'm doing is right now working with a very interesting non-profit organization called I4C. So it's the full form is Inclusive Inter-Institutional Inclusive Innovation Center. It's a bit of a long-winded one, so it's I4C. Seems a bit better way to put it. This is a consortium of 50 top CEOs and government departments in India. So Intel Capital, Persistent Systems, Zensar, Deloitte Group, and others. So this is a group which has come together and said, hey, let's do something really big, which will catapult India and Indian innovation to the forefront, to really the top of, to really make an impact for India. And what are the set of activities which we can do to empower innovators, people who have ideas, who can make a difference, but somehow or the other right now are not doing it. So in that context also, I'm happy to figure out if there are ways to help people in this audience, today's audience, to get their ideas into reality. What this group has done last year was organize India's largest innovation expo. So this was a massive get-together where 150 top innovators in India showcased what they had done and how they had done it to more than 1.5 lakh people. So as you can see, I mean, the picture is not at all, I think, painting the wrong picture here. I mean, the picture is pretty accurate. I don't know if my booth is visible. Somewhere in one of those booths, I was showcasing the products from Biosense, and I happened to have 1.5 lakh visitors. This was quite interesting. It showcased two things. One is that this is like India is like a desert. Even if you show a small glass of water, so many people will turn up. Everybody is interested in innovation, and genuinely the public is super interested in hearing what you have to say, hearing what innovators have to say, what they want to learn and they want to do. So tremendously positive. So this expo happened last year. Again, this year there will be an expo. So if you have any of your prototypes, ideas which you are taking forward, good place to showcase them to a large number of people and to different types of people. So this is in Pune. The second thing, so these are a few examples. This was mainly the theme areas where healthcare, kind of medical devices, products like that, then energy, so solar and various kind of energy products, and a few wearables, mobile related products. So one interesting product is a product by a friend of mine, Sumit Dagar, who made a technology for enabling blind people to use smartphones very, very conveniently. So access to email and Facebook and perhaps even seminars like these, I think, using the web on mobile, but for blind people. So these various very innovative products were showcased. Long queues, believe it or not, a couple of kilometers long queues for people to get in. So this is happening pretty much close to in Pune, right? So what I've been working on with this group is also figuring out how we can decentralize, how we can really democratize the concept of innovation. No solo innovators, no experts. Let's get everyday people solving everyday problems. So this group recently also released a idea competition. So a particular idea would be if anybody of you or anybody else who have an idea, they submit on the site. The interesting bit here is that a large part of the judging is actually peer review. So similar to Quirky and other sort of web or crowdsourced crowdsourcing and crowdfunding platforms. Here again, the idea is not judged by a small expert panel or so-called expert panel. Like I said, I don't the word expert we already went over, but rather the judging happens through your own peers. So the best ideas are identified through a collaborative process. So that interesting kind of review process. And of course, what happens next is that apart from the prize money, the best ideas are incubated through a partner, a lot of different ways. So some of the 50 companies themselves have incubators. Some of the other incubators which exist in India, so GSF, various IIMs, IITs, so CII, SIGN, various other incubators for technology companies which exist in India are part of this platform. You also have various ways in which you can collaborate with other innovators. This is again one piece which is close to my heart, is that innovators don't talk to each other. They don't collaborate enough with each other. I believe that if enough, a friend of mine calls them productive collisions. If enough productive collisions happen, then you will find very non-linear kind of outcomes. So these great teams, great ideas, great development happens when people from completely different worlds collide. So that's something which this kind of event and initiatives will help foster. Again, this is not the only one. I'd really recommend you to go on Google and figure out which is the platform which makes most sense for you, for your particular initiative, for your idea. Or happy to, we can have a little bounce around session after the session. So this is I4C, so it's i4c.co.in or inclusiveinnovations.in. Now, one other interesting initiative we are also taking up is getting big challenges from companies in India and posing them to innovators. So this is an initiative called Inventiar. It will be up soon, but I'm pretty passionate about these kind of initiatives, mainly because I do see that everybody is an inventor. That's the theme of the talk, so I guess you can't be surprised when I say this again and again. But I do believe that there is an inventor in every one of us. It's just a question for us to find that person and nurture that person. And if we manage to do that, even for a very small minority, I think our nation will be pretty well off in the next few years. Right. We mentioned 2 myths, and I have a myth number 3, which is a personal, not favorite. What's the opposite of favorite? But a personal bugbear of mine. The I'm too busy myth. I have only one thing to say. If you are not following your ideas because you are too busy, then what are you doing in this session? Yeah, so this is and the I'm too busy myth is something which is I don't think that really should be an excuse at all. Right. That said, I'll end on a completely different note. The picture in front of you, I don't know if any of you are Stanley Kubrick fans. If you are, then you will know where it's from. If you are not, then just for your information, this is a still from 2001: Space Odyssey, the movie. Just to end on a note, we've been talking of inventors, inventing things, innovating. We've been talking of what myths we all suffer from, how to go about things. We've been talking of a few things of initiatives I'm involved in. But at the end of the day, I seriously think that we should not take ourselves too seriously. Innovation happens when in the least expected places, when you are not expecting it. And in that sense, having fun is the most important thing. Having really being true to yourself, doing things which you believe are fun, which you would do for free even. You don't want, you would be happy to get paid, of course, but which you would do for free. So what is that thing? Can you find what you would do for free? And in that context, if you look at all of us, the human race, right? We are, at the end of the day, we are just a group of very overgrown primates, overgrown monkeys, who happen to have suddenly got mobile phones in their hands, right? And who can now suddenly talk to each other over vast distances and have seminars with each other and all of that, right? So let's not take each other too seriously. Let's make the best of what we have. And I think we'll make a fist of it. We'll make the world a better place and all that jazz, right? If you really zoom out even further, if any of you want to zoom out, you find primates. If you zoom out one layer further, you find This image, again, those of you who can recognize it, it's the pale blue dot. It's the Earth as it looks like from way far away. So that's effectively what we are. We are lucky to be on this little pale blue dot, this speck of dust. And let's have some fun, and let's be true to ourselves, and let's make some interesting things happen. That's pretty much, I think, what I have to say. What I'll also, I'd love to have a discussion from here on what you think, what you are doing, etc., etc. But I'd love to also have Priyanka to share a couple of more questions, which I would love to hear answers to. Priyanka?
Well, thank you, Mishkin. That was a great session. Since we are running a little short on time here, I'm going to take a few quick questions. If you have a question, please press the raise hand button on your control panel if you want to directly ask a question from Mishkin, or you can type in your question in the chat box below. So in the meanwhile, while we get questions, I want to ask something, Mishkin. How is it that a person can know if the idea is actually worth converting to a business or an invention? I mean, is there a way to test it?
That's a great question. I firmly believe that a first principles answer, that is to say that based on your own understanding of the world or other people's understanding of the world, or secondary data is not enough. So the only way, real short way to have confidence in whether it's going to work or not is to throw it in the field. So boil it down to the most, MVP, something which is often used, minimum viable product. What's the least amount of the thing, the smallest unit of that idea, which can be made and then thrown to actual users. That's, I think, the simplest way. You have to figure it out on a case-by-case basis, but I firmly believe that for every idea there is an MVP, or there is a core essence which can be prototyped and then thrown to the field for actual data generation.
All right. Thank you, Mishkin. So we have questions coming in. Ananta is asking, do you encourage innovating and entrepreneuring going behind the back of your family?
Sorry, could you repeat that, please? I didn't quite catch that.
Okay. Ananta wants to know, do you encourage innovating and entrepreneuring if you're going behind the back of your family?
If you are going on the back of your family,
yeah,
is that right?
Sometimes families are not very supportive, society is not very supportive of what you want to do, and if you are on the innovation path and if you want to be an entrepreneur side by side, do you think do you support that?
Oh, I see, yes. That's a tough one. If you, I'd say, as a young science student, I used to love the word axiom, AXIOM. These are irrevocable truths. They don't need proof, right? So these are, in your case, I think in all of our cases, we should have some axioms. What are the things which most matter to us? If the security of our family, so food on the plate, basically, right? If that's the most important thing, definitely I don't think you should be taking risks which would deprive food on the plate. But that said, in a very clear way, yourself understand what the axioms are, and then articulate that, have a fair conversation with the family. Hey, look, this is the risk I'm taking, but I'm covering that risk by these methods. That I will never ever, enter a situation where we will be essentially not having food on the plate, basically, right? The same goes with time as well. So time with not just food on the plate, but time with your family. So having clear kind of understanding of how much time you will spend, etc., etc. So there are always trade-offs. Nothing is free. So this time will cost, and everything which you don't do for your idea will cost. But that's once you understand that that's the cost and accept it as a cost, then I think that's where you should. Then there will be less of a problem. If that's making sense, that's pretty much how I would say it. Understand axioms, understand things which are just #1 priorities, and make sure you never risk those.
Prioritizing. Thanks, Mishkin. That's a very fair point. Ananta, I hope that answers your question. So I'm going to take one other question by Mukta. She's asking, Is there a similar service, similar platform like I4C for services, for service ideas?
I do believe there are a few, so I definitely recommend you to off the top of my mind that come to me are OpenIDEO. OpenIDEO is a platform set up by IDEO, the design consulting firm. Another big one which comes to mind is Innocentive, where a lot of ideas from industry, challenges for industry are posed. But specific to service ideas, not that I can think of, but feel free to drop me a line on this. I'll be happy to answer after maybe if something comes to mind. But yeah, Innocentive and OpenIDEO are two that come to mind.
Okay, thank you. So our next question is from Heidi. He's asking, what is your view on the impact of trust on collaborating with others and the impact of having a qualification?
Impact of trust is, am I hearing correctly?
Impact of trust.
So I just assume it's the impact of trust. In case it's not, this is going to be an answer which doesn't answer the question. But impact of trust, I think, in some sense, this is the basis for why solo innovators exist, right? That you don't trust others. You said my idea is so precious that I'll not share it. People will copy it. I don't think that's a very productive approach to have. Because at the end of the day, you need the team. You need everybody to really get behind it. So in that sense, you have to expose it to possible copying. You have to expose it to possible ridicule. Even whereas in copying is ridicule, right? It will hurt the ego. I think that's a leap of faith almost. That you do that, and I firmly believe that if you are really passionate about that idea, you and your team will be able to execute that much better than any copycat. So in that sense, exposing it to the wider community gives you more benefits in terms of help, in terms of support, in terms of even branding these days, right? You are associated with that idea and various other benefits. And the only drawback which is involved with sharing is that of other people copying. I don't think that that equation is too difficult in most cases. That it's in most cases sharing is better than not sharing, and the trust element comes because I think over a repeated number of experiments or repeated number of kind of work projects, you realize that some people just work together and you develop a more personal link.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to take another question. Nibu is asking, what if we have an idea, but we can't create an MVP without a significant investment? Or so without a significant investment.
Then I have a provocative one here. Then I'll see that rethink the idea, rethink really what is the core of it. And I mean, okay, before there's a very beautiful one-liner. I think it's a Japanese one originally, I don't know, but it says that perfection is not adding more and more to something. It's removing more and more and making it less and less until nothing else can be removed. So take your original idea and take an axe and chip away at everything which will not remove anything, which will just make the idea better and better and better. And then at the very core, you'll find one simple thing which addresses the problem of one person or one particular unit. And if you can do that, I think in most cases I've seen that doesn't require money. Money is often the least of your problems as an innovator. That's my biased view on that.
All right, thank you, Nibu.
So
I hope that
only a refining of the idea. Yeah.
Sorry, please continue.
I don't know. So I'm trying to figure out. There's a very interesting TED talk by somebody whose name escapes me. It's about the power of one. You know that whatever. Say if you have a big idea in education, rather than say that I need so many crore rupees to make this happen, see if you can whittle it down and say, hey, can I give it at 10 rupees per hour to one child? And would that child be willing to pay me 10 rupees, or the parents be willing to pay me 10 rupees? Is it really valuable to one child? So rather than get bogged down by will it make sense for 10 million people, 10 million customers, see if you can pull it off for one. And in many cases that involves to a large extent not only whittling away at the idea, but whittling away at your own ego, because you don't think that 1% matter, then that's actually a very dangerous attitude, right? So for any idea, I'd say see if it can be really reduced to as small an idea as possible and can apply to as small a user base as possible. At its core, 1%, one small feature, is it valuable?
All right. Thank you, Mishkin. If you have a follow-up question, Nebu, please feel free to type in. I'm going to take another question here by Ankur. He's asking if you have and if you're working on multiple ideas, how do you manage your time? Are there any tools that help you to keep a check on your progress?
Tools wise, I think again we are living in the golden age of web and mobile and social and cloud tools, right? So multiple tools exist, and I'll not be very biased here. Feel free to look up and figure out which one makes sense for you. I mean, at my end, I'm actually pretty bad at multitasking. So if I'm really passionate about one single thing, I try to get that done before anything else. So I may not be the best person to answer that one. But tools wise, yeah, there are multiple tools. Just even as simple as Google Docs and whatever you other team members might use. You can not only collaborate but also prioritize in different ways, and make sure that you're not spending a huge amount of time on something which you shouldn't be spending. So these kind of things are very much possible, but again, I'll not be very biased. Feel free to just look it up.
So one idea at a time is your mantra.
Well, not so my mantra. I mean, I'll say it's my limitation. I'm not that smart, so I can only process one thing at a time.
Okay. So, all right. So I'm just going to take one last question here. Richa is asking, co-location of the founding and development team, how important is that for the success of a startup?
Great, very interesting question. Even with all these video conferencing and various easy access to communication between teams, I still feel that if you are in one location, it makes a big difference. If you can do it if you can be in one location, please do it. That will, 80% of communication is body language or whatnot, 90%, I don't know what number is, but it helps a huge amount if you are in one place.
So I have a question by Ankur here. I'm not very sure if it makes very much sense. He wants to know, would consider making UCheck open source to increase contributions? It is a follow-up question where he was asking about the tools that one can use.
Yes, it's a great question. So currently, Dr. Abhishek Sen heads UCheck. I've had a few conversations around this with him. If you're interested in the nuances, the different dynamics of open versus closed for UCheck, I'll be happy to connect you directly with Abhishek. You can see if a good conversation can ensue. My personal stance is not so much a philosophical stance between open and closed. I feel that both things have benefits to offer. It's more on the very tactical things around what are the specific advantages which closed gives you versus open. Of course, in the case of medical devices, there have been a few very interesting initiatives with open hardware and open software, but currently there are regulatory constraints because of which you cannot really open up for, and both it's the regulatory and investment bids are somehow linked together, because in many cases you would the investors which your company might of course not yet see the value of open, which is fair enough. I mean, I feel that open models also have interesting revenue models. Increasingly, I mean, the examples are all around us, right? Starting with Arduino and I mean, you can name it, right? Even in open hardware these days, there are so many potentially highly kind of transformative companies which are working on with the open hardware model. So it's possible, but in medical devices, I think somehow or other there are a few extra challenges which involve regulatory kind of problems, and the regulatory framework in which this exists has to also adopt and evolve and be up to date when it comes to policies there. So I think that those are very small nuanced issues, tactical issues, which if you're interested, happy to connect with Abhishek for a detailed conversation.
So he's specifically interested in knowing if you would open image processing algorithms.
Oh yeah, in that sense, why not? I mean, in general, the open, like I said, it's not so much about whether I will open or not, or whether BioSense will open or not. It's more a question of will that add value to users or not. And like I said, those very nuanced questions, I'm more than happy to take offline, because I don't think they'll be super. I'm assuming that medical device regulatory issues may not exactly be the most interesting things for this invention crowd. But that said, they do impact in a very positive way many times. How any small change in the hardware or software, the repercussions of very small change. That's why I said that let's take that particular question offline, and if needed, I'll be happy to connect with Dr. Abhishek Sen, who leads the BioSense team right now.
All right. Thank you so much, Mishkin, for answering all the questions very patiently. I still have questions coming in, so I request those who are still typing in questions to please mail them at webinars@srijan.in. For the questions that I've already received, I'll make sure that I get them answered by Mishkin and drop a mail to you in person. Thank you once again, Mishkin, I'm sure everybody found your presentation very insightful and interesting. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us in this webinar. And before I close today's webinars, I would also like to announce that our next webinar is on breaking the limitations with Drupal 8 by Ashish Thakur from Srijan Technologies on 25th of June. For registration, you will be getting a mail from our site. So stay tuned and have a great day.